Good evening, everybody, whoever is listening to this. Uh, for studying Shakespeare, I thought that we could have a short revision of what tragedy means with reference to Shakespearean tragedies and brush up our knowledge of ancient and Shakespearean tragedies a bit to understand Macbeth, your prescribed text, a little better. So here you see that the definition and types of tragedy. The definition you all know, that it's a story of a flawed hero or heroine of noble character, fighting against circumstances, and the themes obviously will be serious, and it ends in the death or downfall of the hero. The types, let me remind you, are of ancient Greek and Roman tragedy and Elizabethan and Jacobean. I'm just doing these two types because uh, otherwise they may be too much of information for this level of study. And the dramatists, this is something extra. Sophocles, Euripides, Aeschylus, Seneca are the ancient Greek and Roman dramatists, while Elizabethan and Jacobean dramatists are Marlowe, Shakespeare, Johnson, and Webster. So the next slide. This is important because they may come up with, when we discuss the tragedies, these are the literary terms. Unities of time, place, and action. That means time as we see it today, the linear time. Okay, like starting from one point and moving forwards, not backwards, because modern tragedy has a lot of forward and backward movement, and so that complicates things. This was very simple: start from a point of time and move forward. Place was also very simple. uh, it's one place and surrounding areas, and the action was basically the progression of one particular action in the play. The play moves towards one particular action, and then what happens after that. So these three unities were actually first, formalized by Aristotle in his Poetics, and Shakespearean tragedy follows more or less the Aristotelian framework of tragedy. So another term that you may come across is hamartia, or error of judgment. Self-explanatory. Hamartia is the Greek word, and error of judgment is what we understand by it. Hubris is the tragic flaw in plain English. Peripeteia is a reversal of fortune in plain English. These three elements are found both in Aristotelian type of tragedy and Shakespearean tragedy, but the next one, restoration of order, is found only in Shakespeare, whereas catharsis is found only in Aristotle. Okay, we do not find catharsis. Now, what is catharsis? Catharsis is nothing but a purging of the emotion. So all the rage and anger that you may have felt, or the jealousy, or all the baser emotions that you may have felt, that is exorcised from your consciousness. So you feel free, you feel relieved after watching that. So that is not really there in Shakespeare. That is what I feel, because instead of feeling relieved, whenever I have read any of his tragedies, I feel more worried. So I don't think, at least I undergo any kind of catharsis. So this is just a little bit of maybe a game that we can play. The first one is, you can see a black man and a white woman. and the black man seems to be crying, weeping. And since the white woman seems to be very still with her eyes closed, so I guess that she's dead. That's all the clue that I'm going to give you. In the middle one, it's mentioned that it's Macbeth there. Now, in the last one on your right side, we have two lovers who are very young, belonging to rival families, and both die. The picture on the left is about a man who perhaps overthinks instead of taking action. And the picture on the right is about an old man whose daughter has died. So these are 5 very important and very interesting tragedies written by Shakespeare. So perhaps let's see if you can guess the names. Now we come to the structure of Shakespearean tragedies. So generally you will find, not generally, Shakespearean tragedies are always divided into 5 acts. The first act deals with exposition, and I have written there what exposition means, that we have the setting, which is the time and the place given. We have the mood established, the atmosphere, and naturally along with it some of the main themes also come into focus. Then we have the complication or the rising action, which is in Act 2, where we have this elaboration of the tragic figure, either through his own speeches or through speeches of others, and we have the main issues coming into focus. Act 3 brings in the climax. Now, the whole of Act 3 is not the climax. There is one particular point in Act 3 which is the climax. The rest of it brings the immediate consequences of it. Act 4 is actually the catastrophe that results because of that fatal action of the tragic protagonist. And the catastrophe is how the figure falls from that height that it had earlier. And then we have the denouement, which is, as I said, not there in Aristotelian tragedies, but there in Shakespeare, that is glimpse of a restored order. And this is how you will find in Macbeth also. This is the structure that you will find in the plot of Macbeth. Now this picture I found of a heath, of Scotland, which is not very representative of the heath. I didn't want to give you that idea of a Scotland that is barren, because Scotland is full of beautiful lakes and valleys, etc. If you remember The Solitary Reaper, if you've read it earlier in your earlier classes, so that the maidens singing in the valley. So Scotland is beautiful, but Shakespeare opens his play with a barren heath because he wants to make it immediately apparent to his audience and to his readers that it is going to be a play which deals with barrenness, perhaps of emotions, or barrenness of thought. Whereas I want to give you a picture of a more appealing Scotland, a more modern Scotland, which you may want to explore and visit when you grow up. So don't carry the picture of Scotland that we will get in Macbeth. That is part of ancient Scotland, remember. So I have given you two maps here, one of ancient Scotland and modern Scotland, and you will immediately say, ma'am, there is too much difference in the land spheres. Yes, because as you know, the earth is never stationary, and probably they have shifted a little bit, or maybe the pictorial representations are just that, pictorial representations. I have taken whatever was available because I basically wanted to give you an idea. Um, may not be the exact map of ancient Scotland. Modern Scotland is, I think, more or less exact. But what you will notice is Inverness was in the ancient Scotland map. Inverness is on the left hand side, okay, but it is near the coast. That's clear. And here in modern Scottish, the map of modern Scotland, you have Inverness more or less in the middle, but still it is near the coast. So, you know, over centuries, the land masses may have shifted a little bit here and there, so perhaps that is it. But the sea obviously plays an important part because, as you will come to know, there is an invasion from the sea during Macbeth and Duncan's time. Now, what's the relation between Duncan, Macbeth, and James I? So, Shakespeare wrote this tragedy not during Elizabeth's reign, but when after Elizabeth died and James I had succeeded to the throne. So, James I became the Scottish king in 1567, and he became the English king after Queen Elizabeth's death in 1603. And he was the first one who styled himself King of Great Britain, that is, King of Scotland, England, Scotland, and Wales. All right. And what perhaps prompted Shakespeare to write this play was because James I actually claimed descendants from Banquo. We'll come to that in the next slide. But before that, we find there are certain differences between Shakespeare's Duncan and the historical Duncan, Shakespeare's Macbeth and historical Macbeth. So Shakespeare's Duncan was killed by Macbeth in 1040 when Macbeth became the Scottish king. But according to history, Duncan was a weak and poor ruler. Whereas in Shakespeare, we will find that he's supposed to be a very good and just king. And opposite to the portrait of Macbeth in Shakespeare's play, the real Macbeth ruled for 17 years before death, and he was a good and wise ruler. So, why did Shakespeare make these differences? Maybe because he wanted to subtly flatter James with reference to, you know, reunifying England and Scotland, because James claimed to be Banquo's heir, as I said. Then why does he introduce the witches? Because James was very, very interested in necromancy and witches, etc. And these witches resemble the ones from demonology, that is James's, you know, theory that he wrote on demons and stuff. So maybe because Shakespeare's company, the King's Men, was owned by James, so you know he had to please the proprietor. And also, why did he choose Macbeth was because the gunpowder plot of 1600, when they had the English had tried to blow up Parliament. Macbeth proved to be, you know, a reminder of the threat to an anointed king. Remember, Duncan was the anointed king. So these are all the sub levels or subtexts. Perhaps you need not go into the details. This is just for a little bit of extra information to build up your interest. Now, Macbeth as the tragic hero, I'm giving you this just now, but of course we'll discuss it again later. So what is the definition of a tragic hero according to Aristotle? That he has to have that hamartia, or the error of judgment. He has to have this peripeteia, that is reversal of fortune. He has to have hubris, that is arrogance. And he has to have anagnosis, that is the final realization. So Macbeth actually epitomizes all these. Now how he does it, we'll do it as we go through the play. Here I have given you exactly how we can regard him. So when you are writing afterwards Macbeth as the tragic hero, you can refer back to this. I won't go into it in greater detail because everything is clear. Everything will become clear once we go through the play in detail. So thank you for your patience and listening. Hope it will help you out. Do share it if you think it will help out your friends. It's absolutely free.